I'm Dr. Molly Ness, host of the End Book Deserts podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to a mini episode of the Educational Duct Tape Podcast. Mini episodes just like this one are released every other Wednesday and feature interviews with educators that were recorded live on location at a conference or event. Please subscribe to the show to make sure that you don't miss any of these episodes. And now, here's the host of the Educational Duct Tape Podcast, Jake Miller.
Hello, duct tapers. Welcome in. Before we get into today's mini episode interview, I'd like to remind you to listen to full episodes of the podcast to hear longer interviews with my guests, my soapbox moments, and content from listeners just like you, the duct tapers. Also, those longer episodes give you the chance to earn a certificate of listening, laughing, and learning that you could turn in for professional development credits. Many episodes like this one that you're listening to right now, however, are not eligible for those credits simply because they're so short. However, what they lack in certificates and episode length, they make up for in awesomeness. Speaking of that awesomeness, let's travel back in time to today's interview, which was recorded live and on location at a conference or event.
Today's guest.
Okay, we're back from day 2 of the Teach Better conference here in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, and I am joined by another educator friend that I just met today and I'm having fun chatting with. Her name is Christina Florence. So, Christina, why don't you tell everybody about where you're from, what you do, what your background is?
So I have been in education for 18 years. I started at a private school up in Toledo for 13 years and had an opportunity to transfer to a public school. I've been there for the last 6 years.
Okay.
And absolutely loving it. I went from a district that was 9 through 12 private, and now I'm in a K through 12 building where there's only 2 other science teachers.
Okay, wow. So it's a small school.
Yeah, very big culture shock.
Yeah, so how many grades do you teach then?
I teach 10 through 12, but I have biology, anatomy, chemistry, and a Bio 2 class.
You got a lot of science going around in your head during the day.
I'm the ABCs of science, I like to call it.
You are, yeah. So anatomy, biology, and chemistry is really the ABCs. That's nice. So we're going to do a little bit of educational duct tape here. I'm going to ask you a question. Okay. So for those people listening that may have never listened before, the educational duct tape metaphor is that technology is at its best in the classroom when we're using it as a tool to solve a problem, to meet a goal, to address a learning standard. So we're not focused on the technology, we're focused on the teacher stuff. So I'm going to ask you a teacher question, and then we're going to use some technology to solve your question. So my question is, how can students creatively represent scientific concepts, like scientific phenomenons in class? You seem like the perfect person to ask this question to, since you're teaching so many science classes. So how can kids represent what they know about these processes?
At this conference, I wanted to learn more about how I can use my tech effectively, and one of the sessions talked about Scratch and coding.
I love Scratch.
I didn't realize what an amazing concept this is for students, and I don't even know if my kids are really getting it. So with Scratch, I feel like I can introduce a lifelong skill for my students, along with hopefully leading into the science that I need to teach.
What I really like about that is you're it's a 2 birds with 1 stone kind of thing right there, right? Where the kids are modeling the science, but they're also learning, like you said, a life skill. Like they're learning computer science there. But there's also kind of like you're hiding in there, maybe subconsciously, maybe you don't even realize it, but you're hiding in there a message to the kids that you want to see what they can create and you want to see what they could do creatively, right? And you're telling them that maybe even if coding or computer science isn't a route they go down, that they have the freedom to communicate things in a way other than a piece of paper and a pencil or a Google Doc where they're just typing stuff in. It's more than just words. Like there's creativity involved, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So what's some concepts you might use this with?
Well, I'm currently in photosynthesis, and I think most bio teachers agree that I hate teaching that concept. It's more in depth than I feel like we really need to be going, but it's a core standard. It's tested on our state tests. So we're getting into the electron transport chain, the Calvin cycle, and I would like to get the kids up and moving more, but I feel like using The Scratch, I can actually let them design a program so they can actually see the electron transport chain happening, like the hot potato game we talk about, and adding the energy and animating it so they can really bring it to life, breaking the water down, seeing and following the movement of where things are actually going.
Yeah. One thing I love about Scratch is that, have you used it much yourself?
I have not. I've just kind of started it.
Here's going to be one of the cool things that I want to hear about after you do this. I want you to send this to me.
Okay.
Is that the kids can go a lot of different routes in the way they do that. Like, they can create something that's interactive, right? Maybe where the Scratch is asking the user questions about what do you think that happens next in photosynthesis, maybe, or something that's more like a quiz, or they could create something that's really just literally just an animation, like you just press play and it goes through it, or they create something that's like a game. They can create something that involves music or sound, or doesn't involve music or sound, or can involve a lot of words or not a lot of words. That could be an animation of photosynthesis happening. Like, you're going to see a whole lot of mind-blowing routes to take it.
This is awesome. I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, one thing I want to point out too for listeners out there that maybe have never used Scratch is that Scratch is all age appropriate, from probably 2nd or 3rd grade up, depending on the ability level in those elementary school grades. But I, as an adult, enjoy using Scratch, and I'm challenged by Scratch. And if you have a high schooler who tells you that Scratch isn't a challenge for them, what the problem is that they're seeing Scratch and they're focusing on just the tool. They're not focusing on what they're trying to do with it, right? So you're challenging them to use a tool that maybe they already know how to use to do something specific. Like, if I tell a kid to do something in Google Docs isn't challenging.
Right.
It's what they're doing in the Google Docs that's challenging.
Right.
So I think Scratch is appropriate in all grade levels. I love this. This is a great idea. Really cool.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it. I feel like the kids are going to be engaged. I'm starting to think of other applications, students using it for their own review sessions. I encourage them to try to review more, because I have 2 college classes. I actually teach. I'm an adjunct professor, and we work at the high school level with it. And I'm trying to get them ready for college. And okay, well, we're still high school, but you're college, so how can you do this more on your own?
Nice.
So
super cool. I love that. Thank you so much for stopping by and sharing
problem.
that.
Thank you.
This was great.
Thank you for listening to the Educational Duct Tape Podcast. Please visit eduducttape.com to join the discussion, share possible topics, inquire about being a guest, or contact Jake. And remember, duct is spelled with a T, not a quack quack K.